Christian Horner and Red Bull are getting worried about Mercedes' sudden upswing in performance and reckon the Silver Arrows will be a stronger than ever contender this week at Paul Ricard. Struggling to tame their bouncy car for most of the season, it simply took a few update packages for Mercedes to finally get into grips with their W13, as the team now scored 4 consecutive podium finishes and is cutting its gap to Red Bull and Ferrari with each race. So, where is Mercedes' sudden pace coming from? How quick are they really? And why is Red Bull suddenly getting worried? We think we might have the answers, so stick around to find out. Mercedes' most significant gain came in Silverstone, where at one stage they looked in contention for the win, but eventually had to settle for third best only. But for Red Bull, the most worrying sign came last time out in Austria. Despite the Red Bull ring's layout favoring the Mercedes significantly less than the high-speed tweaks and corners of Silverstone, the Works team once again had a strong showing, getting both their cars into the top 4. But they've achieved similar results on many previous occasions this year, so why is Christian Horner and the whole of Red Bull suddenly getting worried much more than ever before? To answer that question, we have to look a bit further back into the season. While points are the typical benchmark to measure teams against one another, it's not entirely representative of what the reality might truly be. Mercedes scored multiple podiums in the early stages of the season, but finished miles off of Red Bull or Ferrari in terms of lap time. With 1-minute differences between the finishing times of the two teams at the end of a Grand Prix, not anything out of the ordinary. Mercedes were on average losing 0.7 per racing lap compared to the fastest car, which made any contention for victory or even a podium on pure pace almost impossible. A 0.7 gap is a similar time deficit that Red Bull and Mercedes usually held over Ferrari last season, which only puts into perspective how wrong Mercedes got it with their initial car concept. But last time out in Austria, Mercedes radically closed that gap, giving Red Bull and Ferrari a new set of problems to worry about, especially showing such promise at the Austrian venue, whose long straights and low to medium speed corners don't suit the Mercedes package at all. Despite Hamilton finishing 41 seconds adrift of Leclerc's class of the field Ferrari, which would amount to about a 0.6 loss per lap, this doesn't put into perspective the free pit stops that both cars ahead of the two Mercedes made under the VSC, which put them significantly ahead on track. One of Mercedes' highest-profile engineers, Mike Elliott, insists that Mercedes are much closer to the leaders than ever before, and now presented viable data to support his take. In the race on Sunday, Lewis was able to get through the slower cars that were in front of him. While we finished the race quite a chunk off the front, some of that was because the Ferraris and the Red Bull were able to stop under the virtual safety car at the end and stop onto the medium tires and effectively get a cheap stop, Elliott revealed. If you correct the pace for degradation, we think we were probably 2, maybe 0.3 behind the Ferrari, which was the quickest car in the race, he concluded with utmost confidence. So, while Mercedes made a massive step forward in Spielberg, Red Bull suffered one of their most significant blows this season, getting outperformed on pure race pace by Ferrari as they struggled significantly with tire deg, which was later linked to their evasive action to add weight onto the car to avoid an FIA intervention regarding their flexi-floor design, which buffed up the car's weight by upwards of 10 kilos. If this trend continues, and Mercedes keep finding more and more answers to their gremlins, which now simply seem to lie in their top speed abilities, the Silver Arrows could indeed join the party in the near future, and after all, have a shot at regular wins and potentially even the championship crown. Red Bull is well aware that could be the case, as Christian Horner now spoke out on Mercedes' challenge, admitting he's starting to feel like the 2022 campaign is turning into a good old three-way fight. "We'll expect them to be quick in Paul Ricard," Horner said. "They're showing flashes of being there or thereabouts. The last 2 races have been pretty decent for them, and there's been no sign, I think, of any porpoising at all. So they seem to be slowly bringing themselves back into the game," he added, with a sign of worry. And while it seems Mercedes have lost too much ground to be in any serious contention for either of the championships during their initial period of struggle, tailing Red Bull by 122 points, the last thing Red Bull would have wished for is to have another constructor interrupt their, up until now, straightforward battle with Ferrari. Mercedes made the best of their early season slump, still managing to put an impressive 237 points on the board, mainly due to their stellar car reliability, which allowed them to take advantage of massive point grabs when either of the Red Bulls or Ferraris retired due to mechanical failures. And it's their consistency that led Horner to believe that their recent upswing in performance brings them right back into a proper challenging position. "I think they'll be a contender," reckons the Red Bull boss. "They keep consistently scoring points." I'm not sure how far off they are in the Constructors' or Drivers' Championships at the moment, but, sometimes having more cars in play is a good thing. Sometimes it might be a bad thing, he hinted. "But I think for the fans, it is great to have 6 cars competing for victories," Horner signed off. But it's not just Mercedes the Red Bull boss is worried about, with their direct competitors still being the biggest of his concerns. In Austria, Ferrari were on track to secure their first 1-2 finish since the Bahrain season opener if it weren't for Sainz's engine giving up in the middle of his Verstappen overtake. The anticipation for Red Bull was high coming into their home event, as many expected the team to comfortably get both drivers on the podium at the very least. But the weekend slowly turned into a one to forget, with the team's already mentioned tire degradation costing them any shot at the win, and Perez's clumsy first lap move on Russell ending his race prematurely. Ferrari and Leclerc genuinely have the pace to be leading both championships, as Leclerc has lost at least 70 points due to bad strategy calls, but mainly the terrible reliability of the Ferrari power unit. Many fans suggested that Leclerc got robbed of what seemed like 2 comfortable wins in Barcelona and Baku due to engine blowouts, and lost out on yet another win in Silverstone and Monaco due to a strategic error from the Scuderia. But Ferrari proved last time out that, if they hook everything up, they can be a force to be reckoned with. And Red Bull are once again well aware that's the case, with Christian Horner admitting the team is leaving nothing to chance and are looking to get even stronger with yet another update package in France. In response to suggestions that Red Bull are in a comfortable position, Horner says that they cannot just sit back and count on its main rival hitting trouble. Being directly asked whether Red Bull took some comfort from Ferrari's fragility weakness, Horner had the following to say: "Not really, we're not too focused on them. We can't control or contribute to that in any way. I think that we've got to focus on ourselves and just getting the best out of our own package." They had a very strong car in Austria, and they could have well finished first and second, Horner added, running the stakes high. And while one bad race is no indication of a bigger negative pattern developing down at Red Bull, it certainly doesn't allow the team to have any extra breathing space, as the rapidly quick Ferraris continue knocking on the door, and Mercedes' upswing in form, while not directly threatening Red Bull's championship aspirations, could certainly cost Red Bull a few points here and there from now on, which, in parallel with Ferrari taking a step up, could prove detrimental to their title bid. So, what do you guys think? Are Red Bull's days numbered like many are suggesting? Who do you think will have the fastest car this weekend? And can you see Mercedes being a serious contender? Let us know in the comments down below.